So welcome to Double D. We have got a fantastic guest with us today, Debbie, haven't we? Who is it, Debbie?
So he does this every week, just to let you know.
But you say that every week.
I know, but that's really boring then.
Well, no, well, boring by definition or boring by accident?
Anyway, let's introduce our guests. Let's let them introduce themselves.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's...
Karen Turner.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's the cheesiest thing I've ever said.
I know, I'm our cheesiest intro, so I think it matches.
And this has got to be one of the best accents going. So we've got three really strong accents: Scottish, Bolton, and somewhere down south.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to put it out there now. It's Sussex and not Essex, as Dave continually says to me. Sussex.
So is there?
I'm going to learn. No, it's phonetic confusion.
Is it?
Yeah, that's often what it is. It's phonetic confusion. So well, you just associate the wrong sound with the wrong place.
I love a good accent though. Anyway, we digress. Karen.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Madhouse.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a little scared of where we're going with this, particularly, anything can happen.
I think we've got an awesome topic that is going to relate to so many people. So we are going to talk about transitioning from corporate to running your own business, and also in a very short time scale, which is about 18 months, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, 18 months. It's flown by, been torturous. It's been amazing. It's been fun. Every possible emotion I ever had, that's what it's been.
And I think that's the bit we want to talk about, because it's the reality of and the how do you do, because a lot of people don't talk about that.
Do you know, in a 33-minute podcast, you know, that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
In terms of time efficiency, shouldn't we be? Let's talk about that. Shouldn't that be the intro to the next bit?
I know, but it's like a good story. You have a start, a middle, and an end.
So how did you find the world outside of your corporate days when you first took the plunge?
I think initially I absolutely loved every minute of it. I was in the probably the daydream of all of it, the fantasy of how it's going to be, and thinking about the future and where I want to get to. So the first few months were, I think, officially probably the honeymoon period that everyone would describe, and I just loved every minute of it. I think the freedom of what running your own business brings, and that's taken, even now, to be fair, some adjustment, because you think you're going to be having the freedom that you want, you can do whatever you want whenever you want, but the guilt is still there, because you think, oh, do you know what, I could actually still be doing some work rather than going out and having some time with my friends and family. But yeah, all of that aside, has taken some time to get used to, but initially it has been incredible. And then I think reality hits and you go, you know what, there's actually so much more involved than I ever could have imagined.
So look at that. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to actually ask the main question, which is why did you leave corporate to do this? Because a lot of people are going to sitting there.
And it's not for everybody.
Oh no, it's definitely not. But why did you choose to do this?
I felt like I had more in me than always being in a corporate framework. I've been thinking about it for many years, and actually I had talked about it for many years without even realising. So now that I'd stepped out of the corporate world, lots of my old colleagues and friends had got in touch to say something along the lines of, oh, it's about time you did something about that, because you've been talking about it for ages. And I hadn't even realised, to be fair. But yeah, I just felt after about 20 odd years in corporate, it was time to give something back to other people. I felt I'd learned so much stuff. I'd been around with so many different and amazing people, and I really wanted to be able to pull all of that knowledge and skills together and to be able to give that back to other people that were maybe going through some of the same struggles that I had in my early career around, particularly for women, not having the confidence to go forward and do the things that you believe in. And so I felt like I could have a really big impact on particularly women doing more than they ever thought they could. So the only way I'd ever do that was by doing my own business, not by staying in the corporate world.
Because you've got to lead the example, haven't you? You've got to be able to say, these are some of the decisions. And I think just from a female perspective, I think it's really interesting is that there is still a very stereotypical type of person, either within corporate or self-employed. And how have you made sure that you've not stuck to like a stereotype?
I'm not sure that I've got there yet, to be honest. I think there are still things that I do that probably, you feel you've got to do, you've got to sometimes be a certain way with certain people, but that's just significantly reduced since I've done my own thing. because you've got to do what you really genuinely believe in. And that's the beauty of having your own business, is that you should be doing what you believe is right. Otherwise, what's the point? You might as well stay in the corporate and just do everything you're expected to do. So I think it's just trying to stay strong in your beliefs. And that isn't easy when you're out on your own, because sometimes there are days when you feel like you are completely working on your own and it's a really hard slog. But you just have to keep pushing through some of that stuff and going back to the people that you trust and respect that can help you.
Let's really amplify that message, because I think what you said there could be lost in the content of your sentence, and that is staying strong to your beliefs. Because because when you run your own business, right, you are responsible for that. Nobody else is. And when you're in a corporate structure, there's lots of other things that can either complement, restrict, get in the way of it. And you might often find yourself having stronger beliefs than the corporate does in that framework. But in your own business, I quite like the fact that you had said, staying strong to your beliefs. I think it's really important. And one of the things that I've learned, Karen, and going back in 15, 16 years ago, was if you're having an off day, stay out of the arena. Don't go out into the shop window if you look like you've had enough. And because that's the other side, it's hidden, isn't it? You've always got to have this brand front on, yet some days you just might be feeling lousy. How did you get through those days?
Well, they're still happening. That's the thing, you know. You don't just suddenly get through year one and go, oh, this is all right, this is okay, I'm, you know, cooking on gas. I think those days are still there, but I think for me, the go-to place when you're feeling like it's all a bit hard work and you're not really getting anywhere is to pick up the phone or have a call or go and see people that you know you can lean on. And there is absolutely no shame in that. And I think that's the thing you have to remember, is that when you're not feeling it and you're working on your own, go and find people that can help you get back on track. And then those people can do the same with you. So you have that network that are there to support each other. And I think also, to your point there, Dave, go and have some downtime. If it's not happening for you, you can't sit in front of your computer on your own and just turn it on. You've got to just walk away. Go and do something different, something that you enjoy, switch off, and then come back to it, and you'll be far more impactful and productive in that time.
And just going back to that network, because I think this is really interesting, because one, the word network can have lots of connotations, and either positive or negative for many. And if you've stepped away from corporate, how have you worked through the fact that people have an expectation then that, well, she stepped away from it, so she doesn't need any help, or she, you know, she's all right, kind of thing. And we still have to present that, because if we're a coach or a consultant, we have to make sure that we are ready to present ourselves, which is important for the day and time. But how have you dealt with creating that network of trust? Because ultimately that's what it is.
Yeah, I think you meet people along the way, as well as people that you had in your past. You know, I still connect a lot with people that I worked with in my corporate world. They're still really important people in my lives, and are people that I look up to. You know, you still need people that you are inspired by and respect, and can pick up the phone and have a really honest conversation with, you know. And then there are other people you meet along the way through, you know, the forced networking activity that happens when you start your own business, which you spend a lot of time doing in that, certainly first year. And so you instinctively meet people that you connect with, and you can see sometimes that they may have the same struggles as you, or they have the same level of success in certain things, and that therefore brings people together. And that's how I've built my team, actually, is through some of the networking events, because you meet people and go, this feels right, and you shouldn't shy away from that feeling that you have. That it's an emotional connection, really, that you get with certain people, isn't it? That you go, this is going to work, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. And then I think there's your sort of personal network that are really important, which is just your friends and family. And, you know, that's the bit that you have to really never let go of, because sometimes when you're running your own business, it's so intense and full on that you can get so engrossed in doing the business that you can forget about some of your friends and family if you're not careful. And they're such an important part of that group that you can lean on and confide in, really, and say, you know what, sometimes this is really hard.
And how do you going to ask something?
No, I was just letting you flow, Debbie. Letting you flow.
How do you, because I think I found this probably the most difficult, moving from corporate to being self-employed, was actually defining my beliefs, because I've been in corporate 20 odd years, and I think you actually become something that maybe you're not even, but it just becomes really easy. It becomes a bit of an act.
You have to unpeel yourself. You have to take away the bits that are either part of the brand you were in, conditions of the working structure, the operational design, the cultural that either was or wasn't in play. And sometimes, in my experience of all this time in the industry, layers that you've developed to cope with certain challenges, you got to unpeel them, because in your own business, you've got to be authentic.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Well, I think it probably took me about 6 months to unpeel those layers, if I'm honest. I think I finished my job. I had about a month of doing nothing. I went on holiday, just chilled out for a bit, and I thought, oh, this is all right. You're kind of getting used to this. And then you say, right, now let's put the business together and think about what I'm really doing. And the great thing about training to be a coach was that I got coached. And so that helped me unpeel some of those layers and realize that I had become this corporate machine almost, to a point. I mean, I never felt it at that time. I'd always been very true to my beliefs and felt like I'd been really authentic in my leadership style with my team and the people that I work with. But I had realized probably 6 months after starting out on my own that maybe I'd forgotten a bit about who I was. And then you go, right, how do I put myself back together so that I can really be true to myself in terms of what I want to do and how I want to make a difference? So it took me a while really to find that. And even now, probably 18 months in, there is still the odd time when you go, what am I doing? What's this all about? How am I impacting? You have to keep checking in with yourself, don't you, that you're making the difference that you wanted to make.
Yeah, because I'm literally just rewriting one of our programs. And one of the things is a fundamental part of it is defining your beliefs. And I think a lot of people, and you can talk about values and beliefs, but I actually think there's two key questions to me. Is why do I believe this? And I think we forget that because we become quite conformist within a corporate. And I don't think that's a negative thing. I think it's partly survival. Two, we work in corporate because I worked in corporate particularly because I like the safety. It felt secure. Every month, the same day, secure. I got paid. Yeah, secure.
So it's secure.
What's wrong with you today? You just take a look at everything I say.
Well, I'm planning to interrupt things. So I want to focus on what Karen's talking about and move into the next level of challenge. Because I think we can do corporate to death. So how do you manage the challenge of today? Because you've come through 18 months, right? So that's a success in itself. How do you manage the challenges? And I guess give us a flavor of the industry you're in. I know we know, but for the listener, what industry are you serving right now as your so-called niche or niche?
Yes, indeed, niche. I love it that you call it a niche.
It's American.
American, right? Okay, I need to work on my American accent for the next podcast.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. When you come back.
Yeah.
So, well, the industry I'm in is healthcare, and I'd love to do more across all of healthcare. But right now, my niche, as you call it, Dave, is all about dentistry and home care, because my background in corporate has been dentistry for the last 5 years prior to starting my own business. And actually, prior to that, I was in pharmacy, and so that's another niche to go after at some stage, but kind of can't do it all at once. So it's all about healthcare. And the reason it's healthcare and the reason that's so important to me is because I genuinely believe, and I've seen it over the years, how much people that work in healthcare contribute so much to patients and patient care. And of course, at some point in all our lives, we've all been patients probably, or our families have. And so I wanted to be able to give something back to that industry. And if I could help make their lives easier, help them be more competent in what they're doing, more skilled in what they're doing, and have just generally more confidence in what they're doing, that would make a huge impact on patients that they're looking after. So that's why I did that full loop, really, about how you give something back.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think there's a really good point that you just said there, is about when you're running your own business, you want to do it all. You want to service everybody, you want to help everybody, you want to provide a solution for everybody. But I think, you very quickly, because a lot of businesses don't do this very quickly, is you have created, right, I'm going to be very specific here. I know where I want to be and I know where I want to grow to, but right now I'm going to focus on this. And I think going from that niche to understanding where you want to be is really important. But I do think when you're managing your own business, you can fall into the trap. You just want to look after everybody.
And I think that when we first started working on your RLC framework with you and Hayden, I thought when you rocked up that day and said, yeah, my niche is, you had an immediate advantage. Yeah, that comes with its own challenges. So if you were to say there were 2 or 3 challenges you're facing in that space today, in terms of impacting the industries, healthcare and so on, what do they tend to be?
Well, I think in a typical time, I suppose outside of the pandemic, there's a lot to think about in terms of managing their stress levels, because of course, as a healthcare team, you're wholly responsible for the patient that's, you know, sat in front of you, whatever industry within the healthcare bit you are. So that's incredibly stressful. There is also, for dentistry particularly, they are extremely talented and skilled and capable in their clinical skills. That's absolutely, you know, what they've learned over the years, but don't necessarily have that wider business knowledge. And so that's the bit that I feel that I'm able to give through my business, help complement them really on their clinical skills and learn the business side of things. So that's a huge stress. If you are a dentist by trade, so to speak, and then you want to run your own practice, you just don't get the opportunity through dental school to learn how to do that. So, you know, I think the stress of the job, learning how to run a business, and then there's a huge gap really in the market around how people develop and train their teams, because again, that's part of leadership training and business skills that not everyone's had. And so that's where I wanted to be able to give my skills and experience to solve those pain points, really, those issues that people have, and hopefully help them grow bigger, more successful businesses and look after patients in a better way.
And I think one of the things that's really interesting as a coach, a mentor, a consultant is you actually start working with a client when they're probably at breaking point, because they've either set up a business because they're highly competent, you know, clinical experts, and thinking that, well, it can't be that hard. But you know, anybody running a business normally starts off from delivering a passion or something they love doing, and then the complexities of just running some of the basics. We're not even going into, you know, big growth and sales programs, and it's just running it day to day. And again, we all encounter it as we run our own businesses. So I think it's really fascinating that, you know, people understand that everybody does need a coach. They need somebody who's going to give them that third party perspective and view, and it's a positive, not a negative. I think we do it a lot in America, as you know, and I think it seemed more I don't know whether you can use the word appropriately, but it's more normal to have a coach. It's more
totally, no, I think it's night and day. I think America and Britain, in terms of both marketplaces, it's night and day. And over here, it's still deemed today, even by some of our best clients that we work with at director level, it's like a secret. It's like, oh no, and there's this, and I don't think it's necessarily the perception of coaching, Debbie. I think it's the pressure from the directorship that they have to come up with this idea, this change program, this impact. So therefore, every little chance they get of something shiny has to be, look what I've done, versus moving beyond that ridiculousness. Because isn't it silly when you say it out loud?
It is.
It doesn't matter. You know, if a football team took to the field, I watched Manchester United versus Leicester yesterday, and even in these conditions where the fans aren't in the stadiums, can you imagine if both teams turned up and the coaches said, I'm having a day off? It'd be uproar, wouldn't there? And so we have these other places, including that. You know, I think about gymnastics, and you know, not really. But when I say,
my word, my mind went to a whole place of taking a leotard. Then I was like, oh my god!
No, you see a gymnastic person, right?
Gymnast.
Yeah, you know what I mean. One of them.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah. I was fascinated there.
I'll make my point, right? I'll force this through here. They do something incredible when they're doing the dancing around on the mat, right? And I don't know what you call it.
Very technical.
I know it is, yeah. And I watch it go, how do you do that? But what do they do at the end? They run to their coach. They sprint to their coach. Whether they're sad, happy, miserable, or it was the best thing they ever did, the first person they turn to is the trainer. And if we did that in business, you know, I got a call last week from Saving Grace and Rebecca had a great success. And she called me. And as a coach as well, that is such a thrilling conversation to have, whether it's good or bad. In this case, it was a great call going, get in this. You've had an impact. They've succeeded with something. And in
Yeah.
business, wouldn't it be great if that was more normal in the UK?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's the power of being the outsider looking in, isn't it? Because that's what makes it so amazing. You can go into a business, a dental business or a home care business, and as the outsider, I can see what they can't, because when you're doing it day in, day out,
You
it's
can't
so
see it.
hard.
Well, I think you just become, it's not even blindness, is it? It's because there is so much to do,
Yeah.
it becomes overwhelming. So our brain just deletes that it needs to delete so it can just function.
Yeah,
So
totally.
having to streamline those thoughts is great. So 2 questions. What is the best thing ever since you've started your own business? And what's the worst thing ever?
And you're not allowed to say doing the training with me and Hayden. It's not allowed.
Yeah, that was coming to the second one. Okay, what's been the best thing ever? The best thing ever so far, well, can I say 2 things? Is that slightly cheeky?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. So the first one is the people that I've worked with, particularly female business women, or whatever profession they're in, actually, just seeing the change in those individuals has been incredible. That person that walks through the door, shoulders down, feeling a bit, sorry for themselves, not quite sure where to go, to then 6 months later absolutely flying and super believing in themselves, and just knowing that you've worked with somebody and you've made that difference to helping them get back on track. That's the first thing. And the second thing was bringing a team together, really, and that's still growing. So having Emma and Nikki join my team, and again seeing them grow, there's nothing better than running your own business, not having to worry about anyone else or reporting to anyone else, but just spending your time with your team to show them what it's all about and how they can then believe in themselves and do more and become really self-sufficient, really confident. And things like seeing them do their very first webinar or their very first LinkedIn video, it's just, you feel kind of that moment of pride. Oh my God, I've helped them get there. That's just incredible. So they're probably 2 best things so far. The worst is probably the financial side of it, because it's just a bit hard going, when you're not getting your paycheck every month. It's a bit sporadic. These first, 18 months have been tough. Some months you're high and you're going, this is just incredible. But of course, we know that that isn't sustainable for a few years to get that level of pay coming in every month. So that definitely challenges you around being resilient enough to just keep pushing through it, really.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to Dave's point, and your discussion point was about, that is driven by belief. I can do this. I will do this. I shall do this. I am doing this.
Yeah.
Because I think those days when it is tough, and we don't have our regular paycheck coming in every month in 88, and suddenly realise that we are fully responsible for it all. I think that can be sometimes a real big wobble. It can, it's much easier to just go back and see if we can get the jobs and stuff. But I do think it's,
and that is one of the toughest mindsets, isn't it? In setting up a business, is seeing that commitment through and seeing beyond what were your boundaries from the past, and adjusting to what is then a new way of thinking. I was talking to somebody the other week, and we were just talking about working inside a company and outside a company, and just explaining to them a net number versus what you got paid, and what that difference actually is in terms of your self-tax, personal tax, business tax. There is a simpler way of seeing it, but again, it comes back to your point of being supported by the right people around you. If you don't know, how do you find out? Who do you ask? But I like that. I think it's very honest. And if I was to say something in the UK marketplace on Karen's behalf, you shouldn't be surprised when a coach says to you, no, it's a residual income relationship. It's a monthly commitment, like paying your phone bill or other things that we take for granted. It's a similar relationship. It's not a one-off, I saw you, that's it, see you whenever. It is a consistent approach to coaching and mentoring that always makes the difference. So we always like to ask people to ask Debbie a question.
No, Dave, you like to ask people to ask me a question.
Yeah, I know you've got a list of 17 things you pre-prepared to ask Debbie a question.
Yeah.
Before we go into another part of today's session, is there anything you'd like to ask Debbie? All right.
Oh, you've added yourself to it.
Debbie, particularly.
I'd love to ask Debbie a question, actually. No, I didn't realise I had that opportunity. So I've quickly thought of something, which I'm sure this will not be the only time you've ever been asked this question, which is, how do you put up with Dave?
I think, well, what's interesting is as we're talking about transitioning from corporate to self-employed, the first year for me was hellish. And I have openly said this, and my husband knows. And it wasn't actually hellish in regards to his working with Dave. That's a different topic. But I think it was more about, for me, it was about the doing. So, and then somebody who I love dearly telling me, have you considered this way? And I really struggled with that feedback, because it was, Dave's always said, husband and wife conversation, company director conversations. So I found those two really difficult to move away from. So I think it's more about not just working with Dave, because he is a unique character, as we know, but I actually think it's working with your partner 24/7, being best buddies, and we are ridiculously silly together.
And choosing not to, either side of the fence, so let's be clear, not to manipulate the conversation you're in based on the wrong hat being on your head. Intentionally, to get a point across, because we're running a business. Businesses don't work on points. They don't, right?
Well, neither does a marriage.
No, neither does a marriage. Absolutely. Because the thing for me was, and it comes back to what we're all working on at the moment, which is building frameworks in UK businesses, etc. The framework gives you a neutral space, so that was one of the keys, wasn't it? It was allowing us to say, okay, Debbie, or okay, Dave, what does our framework say about this? And not being in a space of going personal decision, because it became a business decision by a third party piece.
So just to answer your question directly, because I realised I kind of fluffed it a little bit.
Did you?
I think, I did. So just in reference to, I think for me, it was actually more about me working out who I was, which is the reason why I asked that question at the beginning, was I had lost my complete identity. And I think then working with Dave and understanding who he was in the workplace, even though we'd worked before in corporate roles together, it was real. That was probably the most challenging, but also he does make me belly laugh on a very regular basis. And I think that is our saving grace for us as, that's Rebecca's business. But in regards to, I do think that is what keeps us energy high, is we are very tolerant of each other's foibles, I suppose, is the best way. We know each other, and I think that really helps.
And we also know where there's indecision or disagreement, we don't act. We've learned that.
We've learned that one. That was a good one.
We've learned that diligently, and because if it gets super strong in terms of a passionate disagreement, you gotta wait. And usually, because of the industry we're in, one of us will do some learning, some thinking, some reflection. For you, it'll be out on a big walk, listening to an audiobook. For me, it'll be out riding, doing the same thing. And we'll just go, did you know? And suddenly you'll find that both of us have arrived in a similar place. And then the other bit we do, going back to a point you made earlier, we do have a get out of jail card in the US, don't we, called Colette Bell.
So we have our coach.
So if we get stuck, we will go to her and we'll lobby. We literally lobby, don't we?
Brilliant.
Debbie lobbies her corner, and she's like, that's what she sounds like.
Very polite.
And I present facts with a tint of Dave. And then what Colette will do is say, well, I think what reasonable looks like is this. And then we weigh it up and go, you know what, that'll do.
And it goes back, what was interesting is every coach needs a coach.
Yeah.
And it goes back to your point, is that network of having people, whether they're past or present, in your life that are going to tell you, no, that's not right. That's not what you said you were going to be. So think about this. And I think that's a massively powerful thing. And even if you only have one of those people in your work life to help you with your business, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think you've got to have somebody, I guess for you guys, separately as well as together in the same way for me, you've got to have somebody that you can sound off of, haven't you? Because otherwise you're just keeping it all in yourself all the time. And you can help so many more people when your mind is clearer. That's the thing. So I completely agree. I think anyone that is in the coaching industry has to have a coach, because you can't continue to take it all on and not, have some form of release. It's got to happen.
We have to practice what we preach, and I think as a coach, our industry can be full of ego. So knowing that you can actually go to somebody and question and challenge your own self means that you're always going to be the best you can be for anybody that you're working with.
Yeah.
And I think we're entering into a new age of coaching.
You do?
So this is another big Dave statement. So
Okay.
please.
I'm just watching your face.
Yeah.
Well,
It's funny.
I'm still thinking about you being a gymnast, to be fair.
Yeah, so thank you. So the new age of coaching is around having a collaborative mindset to intention and ambition and networking and separating out
About this day.
program and method. And I think that it's what separates us out as groups of people. So you've got your own things you've developed, your own bits of content, Karen, right? That's specialist to your niche or niche. And then what is the program or method that's going to help you do something extra and above your competition? But in one part, you've got to be really open. So you might meet somebody, like you said, going to work with these, going to see how that goes. It feels right, not sure what it means. Then over here is this other side, which is about, okay, that's separate to, here's a program that I have that's for me and is for my clients that's got a method and a program. And I do think they sit alongside each other, but they are different now.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if you look at the coaching industry, all of it, life coaching to right the way through to finance coaching, it's what separates them out. It clears the water quite a bit,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
A new age of coaching.
Yeah. I think coaching has developed for me too into more of a coaching and mentoring relationship, you know, because when I first learned to be a coach, it felt like you had to stick within this very tight framework of being a coach. You know, you could never, ever, ever give any advice. It was only ever about asking questions. But as I've been doing more and more of it outside of the corporate world, because coaching in corporate is very different, isn't it? But when you're doing it for your business, you realise that sometimes it's okay to give the answers because some people really actually want your advice and expertise. And so I think my coaching now has developed more into coaching and mentoring combined rather than strictly coaching. And that's where the biggest benefit comes to clients. And I feel like I'm really giving something that is of use.
Yeah, and I think if they're asking, you should be able to offer.
Well, I actually think it's more than that. I think directional coaching is important in this day and age. The idea of waiting for someone to come up with an answer in an industry or age of doing business where time is more precious than ever before due to competition, digital capability, barriers to doing business in the first place. It's often the differentiator. Waiting for someone to go, yeah, you'll work this out, it'll come to you. And I'm not saying that in a sarcastic way. That business owner walks off going, oh, I'm not any clearer, help. And it's not about your answer as the correct one. Your answer is a start point.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's some of our best coaching relationships at RLC. You know, what you start talking about is the knowledge they didn't have. They don't go and apply it to their own business and go, well, actually, I'm going to tweak it like this. I'm going to add that. And suddenly it works for them. But if you'd left them think about it, they'd be thinking about it next week.
Or just not think about it at all because there's too much going on.
Yeah, I think it's providing the solutions and then selecting the one that they want to run with. I think that's the thing.
As a link from here to the next podcast, as we wrap up today's session, I believe you have to take action today on the thinking you're developing for tomorrow. Now, with that in mind, what action are you going to take that we can come back to tomorrow?
That won't be tomorrow, but you know what I mean.
I feel like he's my boss. I feel like he's turned into my boss all of a sudden. How did that happen?
Yeah. It was very serious, wasn't it? It went from very serious.
Yeah, silly to deep, Debbie. That's how I work.
Well, here you go, Dave. I've got the perfect answer, I reckon, on this one because I've done a lot of thinking last week and into the weekend. So I have actually just spent the last few days rationalising everything that I've been doing for the last 18 months to go, right, what do the next 18 months look like? And I had a great session last week with my team. And we got back to a place that said, you know what, we fundamentally started this to help women in business and help women grow in their confidence, do all the things that they ever thought that they would do. And we would do that not only through individual coaching, but through business focused coaching and mentoring and helping women move from just being where they are now to being business owners. And so where I would like to come back and speak to you guys about next time is just how many women we have impacted in the next 18 months that not only feel better and more empowered and stronger and confident, but we have a predominantly female dental practice ownership population out there, because right now all the men are hogging all of those businesses, and women need to get out there and do it for themselves, and we will instrument that happening. We're going to help them do it.
Love it. So
Awesome.
in closure, you've been listening to Double D Do Business. We've been talking to the marvelous Karen Turner. You'll find all of her details in our contact links that Debbie's probably going to do. But let's just quickly recap. If you remember just 3 things from today, and again, it's rich, full of suggestions. Number 1, stay strong in your beliefs, whatever it is you're doing. Have a support network around you that's going to contribute to building those beliefs, and be prepared to be resilient. If you're starting your own business, know when to be on stage and know when to get the heck off it. So this has been Double D Do Business, every success. And Karen, before I finish, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Every success with your learning.
Welcome to the Double D Do Business podcast by RLC, with your hosts, Dave Evans and Debbie Halls Evans, where they meet each week with guests and discover ways you can help yourself and others become best version businesses, teams, and people. You've been listening to the Double D Do Business podcast, brought to you by RLC and sponsored by CoachPad, the coaching tool built for you, by coaches, for coaches. If you would like any assistance or help for what you've heard today, please feel free to get in touch with us at info@rlc-global.com. That's info@rlc-global.com. And we would be delighted to hear from you. Wishing you every success with your learning.